Hello, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on your location. This is Brooke Akins, and on behalf of Q1 Productions and Celigence, I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar and thank you for joining us. Today's webinar will discuss combination products seeking a notified body's opinion according to MDR Article 117. We're very lucky to have Mr. Joseph Richardson Larby with us today, who's the regulatory affairs expert in medical devices at Celigence, and he'll be presenting on how to best prepare, interact, and fulfill the requirements for a notified body opinion on your organization's combination product. Please note that a copy of the presentation recording will be sent to all registered attendees upon completion of today's webinar, and we have dedicated some time for Q&A. We greatly appreciate all of the questions submitted in advance by all of our attendees and participants. Thank you again for those questions, but you can still submit questions to the Celigence team via the Q&A feature that is on the bottom of your screen in your Zoom toolbar. Again, feel free to submit questions and comments at any time during the presentation via this feature, and I do encourage you to be as specific as possible when sending these through. Please feel free to include an example, and that will help Joseph Richardson in thoroughly answering your questions. But without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Celigence's Dylan Mulvihill, who will be kicking things off today.
Welcome everyone to today's webcast, and thank you for joining. My name is Dylan Mulvihill, and I'm an associate here at Celigence. And today we'll be going over what to keep in mind when seeking a notified body opinion for your combination product. And joining me for today's featured presentation will be Joseph Richardson Larby, who is a medical device regulatory consultant and expert here at Celigence. So today's agenda will include a brief introduction about Celigence from myself, and then I will pass things over to Joseph, who will start with an overview of Medical Device Regulation 2017-745. Following that, we will go into combination products, their types and requirements, and then the role of a notified body and what they play. And then an overview of MDR Annex 1, the GSPRs. And finally, we will get into the best practices. And following that, at the end, will be a Q&A led by Joseph. So to provide you with a brief background on Celigence, we were formed in 2017, just over 3 years ago now, almost 4, with the intent of improving quality and compliance while reducing costs for the life sciences industry in the area of regulatory affairs. And today we now serve some of the top global companies in both the pharmaceutical and medical device sector, as you can see on the right-hand side here. Now we provide regulatory affairs services such as MDR gap analyses, CER writing, device registrations, and other operational and strategic activities required for global device compliance. Now, our offices are located in Chicago, where our headquarters is, as well as London and Bangalore, India, where our primary delivery center is. Now, our delivery center in India, combined with our large network of device experts, allows us to ensure both high quality and cost efficiency. So now moving on here. Here you can see our team's expertise in many areas of medical device RA and QA. We have worked with many clients in multiple therapeutic areas, as you can see on the third row here. And we are also developing technology to improve efficiency for compliance operational activities related to the EU MDR, specifically focusing on clinical evaluation report writing. And that technology has already been started. And all of this work is overseen by our highly experienced and expert management team that to date have finalized 100+ successful CEP, CER, and LSR documents. Now I would like to pass things off to my colleague Joseph for our featured presentation. Thank you. Just to provide you with a brief background on Joseph before we start here. Joseph has 20 years experience in medical device lifecycle management and quality management systems. His key experience include the preparation and maintenance of technical files, product safety, vigilance reporting, clinical evaluation documentation, risk assessment, regulatory audits, CE marking, as well as notified body opinion submissions. Now, his experience includes diabetes management devices, nicotine replacement therapy devices, as well as pressurized metered dose inhalers, as well as others. Now, Joseph has worked for small, medium, and large biotech companies such as Roche, OBG Pharmaceuticals, and Kind Consumer. And we are honored to have him join Celligence. Thanks, Joseph.
Thank you. Thank you, Dylan. Thanks for the introduction, and welcome everybody to today's webinar. So we're going to start talking about combination products, but before I do that, I would like to give you an overview of the medical device regulations 2017-745, and in particular there will be Article 117 that specifies the requirements for combination products. So I know we do have a lot of medical device regulatory professionals on board. We've also got pharmaceutical regulatory affairs and professionals on board. And it's fair to say that the pharma guys might not be abreast with what's happening in the medical device world. So I'll take a minute or two to just give you an overview of the medical device world, the regulation that we're talking about, because it's specifically addressing bits of the medicinal product directive that is very important here. So let's go through this. So the medical device regulations, and it's famously abbreviated as the MDR, so I'll be referring to it as the MDR going forward, but it's the medical device regulations 2017-745. This was adopted in April 2017 and entered into force on the 25th of May 2017 by the European Commission. This regulation is amending two or three things, okay? So you've got the Medicinal Products Directive, you've got the Foods Regulation, and you've got your Cosmetics Regulation. So the new Medical Device Regulation is amending these three directives or regulations. At the same time, it withdraws and replaces two other significant directives. So you've got the Active Implantable Medical Device Directive, and then you've got the outgoing Medical Device Directive. So it's amending, it's withdrawing and replacing. Okay, so that's an important thing that we need to take here. Now, timeline for the MDR. So I've already mentioned that it was adopted. It came into effect on the 25th of May, 2017. However, there was a 3-year transition period. Now, this was from May 2017 to May 2020, 3 years, an initial transition period. Now, we all know what happened last year. Last year, the entire world experienced a pandemic, and some countries are still going through it now. Now, manufacturers of medical devices were impacted, where they were faced with two things. One, you've got the MDR, which is coming into effect in May 2020, and they were obviously working hard to come out with medical devices to fight the coronavirus. So, they were fighting on two fronts, two important dates that they are working with, or two important things that they're working with. So the European Commission acknowledged this and approached the Parliament and said, look, can we postpone the date of application of the MDR by another year? So in April 2020, this was granted, an extension was granted, a 1-year extension was granted, and it was further postponed until the 26th of May 2021, which is some point next month. So there is a graphic on your screen that basically demonstrates the journey that we've gone through from May 2017 all the way up until May 2021, where the MDR will be applicable, so into full force. And then you've got May 2022, which is for the IVDR, but we're not here to talk about the IVDR, we're talking about medical devices at the moment. Now, moving on to combination products, the types and the requirements. What are combination products? Okay. Combination products are products, so two products put onto the market. And when I say two products, I'm talking about a medicinal product with a medical device. Okay. Now, they are either integral or or not integral. So you could be non-integral or integral. Now, if it's not integral, you could also have a combination where the two products separately are being packaged together. So it's the co-package or non-integral. A good example will be a cough syrup, which is a medicine, and a measuring spoon that comes with it. Now, the measuring spoon is your medical device, but the cough syrup itself in the bottle is the medicine. Now, these two devices, so it's not integral, they're separate, but they're being put into the same box. So that's your non-integral combination product. So, you know, combination products are a combination of products that have been put together. They could be co-packaged together, or they could be integrated into one. So the other example of an integral combination product will be your EpiPen device, you know, or your insulin pen device, where the device contains the insulin, which is the medicine, and the actual device that's administering the medicine, the pen itself, is, or your syringe is the medical device. So that's the examples of combination products that we've got. So I've just put on screen here what a medicine is, and this is the definition as per the Medicine Products Directive. So a medicine is any substance or combination of substances presented as having properties for treating or preventing diseases in human beings. And then there is a second part to it. It says any substance or combination of substances which may be used in or administered to human beings, either with a view to restoring, correcting, or modifying physiological functions by exerting a pharmacological, immunological, or metabolic action, or to make a medical diagnosis. So I just want you to have this at the back of your mind, what a medicine is. So it's just for your information. And then we've got the definition of a medical device. Now it's quite long. It's lengthy. It's much bigger than what we've just seen for a medicinal product. So I've just summarized it here. Okay, but by all means, fall onto the MDR where you can find the actual definition for a medical device. So in summary, we are talking about an instrument, apparatus, appliance, software, implant, reagent, material, or other article used alone or in combination for human beings for a specific medical purpose. And some of the medical purposes are to diagnose, prevent, monitor, treatment of diseases, or to monitor, treat, or compensate for an injury or disability. The investigation, replacement, or modification of the anatomy, or of a physiological or pathological process or state, okay? And which does not achieve, so this particular instrument, apparatus, software, does not achieve its principal intended action by pharmacological, immunological, or metabolic means. Because if it does any of these by a pharmacological way, immunological way, or metabolic means, then it's primarily a medicine. So it must not be able to achieve its primary purpose by doing it in these three forms. In or on the human body, but which may be assisted in its function by such means. So it can have its primary means of preventing a disease by physical means or mechanical means, which is what medical devices do. And then secondary, be supplemented by a medicine, and that can then act in a pharmacological way, immunological way, or by metabolic means. So that's fine. So this is what a medical device is, the definition of a medical device. And on screen, we have some examples here. So we've got your very simple medical devices, medical gloves, and you've got a very much advanced medical device, an implanted pacemaker, which controls the rhythm of the heart. So now that we've got the definitions out of the way, let's proceed. And what are the types of combination products? So as I mentioned earlier, so you've got your pressurized metered dose inhalers. So as an example of a combination product, the blue part that you see on the screen of your inhaler is the actual device. It helps to deliver the actual medicinal products, which will be in the canister at the top. Or you've got your pre-filled syringes. So, you know, the syringe itself is your medical device, and what it's administering, the medicinal substance, will be your medicine. And then you've got drug-eluting stents, which shows how far science and technology has come. You know, if you're not familiar with drug-eluting stents, then, you know, please go onto YouTube after this webinar and just have a look at how it operates. It's just fascinating. I just love watching that particular video. It shows you get to appreciate science a lot more. So your drug-eluting stents, then, you know, it's a medical device that goes into the artery to open up the veins, and you know, the medicinal product then flows through to do what it needs to do. So that's very impressive there. But these are some examples of combination products. Now, what is the status quo of combination products now that it's still in the transitional period of the MDR? Okay, so what is the current status or requirement for combination products? And I've split this into the non-integral products and integral products. Let's bear in mind that the non-integral or co-packaged separately is out of scope of Article 117. So the products like your cough syrup that comes with a measuring spoon, those are out of scope. The reason why they are out of scope is your medicine will go through its market authorization approval process. The measuring spoon as a medical device will then go through its conformity assessment with a notified body and will be CE marked accordingly separately, and then they'll be co-packaged together. Okay, so that's out of the scope of Article 117. So that's non-integral products, that's out of scope. And then you've got your integral combination products. So this will be a medical device and medicinal substance integrated as one unit, okay? And I've got the examples here. So we've got your pre-filled syringe and then your drug-eluting stent, okay? So the medicinal component, which in this case of your combination products will have the primary mode of action, will go through your market authorization approval process. And in addition to that, for your medical device element, you will make sure that it conforms with the essential requirements of the medical device directive. So this is the status quo, okay? And at the moment, manufacturers or pharma manufacturers are allowed to self-declare their compliance to the medical device directive by showing compliance to the essential requirements. And then it gets, their paperwork then gets reviewed by the competent authority. So that is the status quo, okay? Or you've got your medical device, which will have the primary mode of action. And in that case, because your medical device has got your primary mode of action, the medical device will be assessed by your notified body. And then there will be a consultation with the competent authority on the drug side of things or the medicine side of things based on its quality, safety, and efficacy, okay, of the medicinal product. So these are the two combinations that you've got for what's in scope, i.e. the integral combination product. Then you've got two products going on here. So one is where you've got your medicinal products, having the primary mode of action, and then you've got one that the medical device has got your primary mode of action. And the examples are as you see on the screen. Okay, so that is the status quo as you are dealing with the medical device directive, which is outgoing and will be replaced by your medical device regulation, the MDR 2017-745. Now, what is the requirement, or what is the new requirement for manufacturers according to the MDR? Now, the articles that are relevant to combination products, so you've got your Article 117 of the MDR, you've got your Article 1, Sections 8 and Sections 9, which I'll come to in a bit. And then you've got Annex 1 of the MDR, which specifies your general safety and performance requirements, which I will abbreviate as GSPRs. Okay, so these are the three things that will regulate combination products. Now, remember, I said in the very beginning, the MDR actually amends part of your Medicines Products Directive 2001/83. So let's get into it to find out what the actual requirements are come the date of application of the MDR, which is the 26th of May, 2021. Right, so I'll start with Article 117, which is amending the Annex 1 to the MPD, Medicinal Products Directive 2001/83. Okay, now it's quite wordy, so I've highlighted a few sections, underlined a few sections that are very, very important for us to go through. I just want you to get the foundation or get the requirements of what is actually needed. Okay, so according to Article 117, and it starts off by saying, devices or products as referred to in the second paragraph of Article 1, Section 8, and its subparagraph. And then you've got Article 1, Section 9, and the subparagraph of that. So we've got two paragraphs that we need to then later on refer to. So we're talking about Article 1, Section 8, the second paragraph of it, and then you've got Article 1, Section 9, and its second paragraph. Okay, so these are the two paragraphs that we'll be paying attention to. And it says, for these products, the marketing authorization dossier shall include the results of the assessment of the conformity of the device parts with the relevant general safety and performance requirements of the MDR, or the relevant certificates issued by a notified body allowing the manufacturer to affix a CE mark to the medical device. Now it's saying, if the dossier does not include the results of the conformity assessment referred to in the first paragraph, then the involvement of a notified body is required in accordance to the regulation or the MDR. Now it says the competent authority, or the authority, and it's referring to the competent authority, shall require the applicant, and who is the applicant here? The manufacturer, to provide an opinion on the conformity of the device part with the relevant GSPRs as set out in Annex 1 of the MDR. And this shall be issued by a notified body designated in accordance with the regulation for the type of device in question. So if you've got a product that has been described in Article 1, Section 8, its second paragraph, and Article 1, Section 9, its second paragraph, then you must have the conformity assessment done on the device part which demonstrates compliance to the GSPRs of the MDR. Failing to do that, then you must have a notified body opinion, which is a report that demonstrates that you do meet the general safety performance requirements of the MDR. So I hope that is clear. It is quite wordy, but that is the definition, and I had to get you to understand what the requirement is. So there are types of products that have been referred to in Article 1, Section 8 and Article 1, Section 9, which I'll come to. And it's saying if you find yourself with one of these devices, then this is what you need. You need a notified body opinion, or for your device element, you need to have a conformity assessment done, which demonstrates that you can affix a CE mark to the medical device. So what are the devices specified in Article 1, Section 8 and Article 1, Section 9? So each section, so Section 8 and Section 9, has got two types of devices going on there. So there is the top half of your screen that you see is Article 1, Section 8, the first paragraph, and then you've got your second paragraph that sits underneath it. Now, Article 117 is referring to devices that fall in the second paragraph of both Section 8 and Section 9. I hope this is clear. So let's just go through this. The first section, or the first paragraph of Section 8 of Article 1 says, any device which when placed on the market or put into service incorporates as an integral part a substance, okay, if used separately would be considered to be a medicinal product as defined in the MPD, including a medicinal product derived from a human blood or human plasma as defined in point 10 of Article 1 of that same directive. And that has an action ancillary to that of the device. So here you are talking about a device drug combination product, because it clearly states that your medicinal product, where is that in this definition? Let me try and find it. Substance which when considered that plasma. That has, okay, so, and that has an action ancillary to that of the device, okay? So your device has got the primary mode of action, and then your medicinal product has got the ancillary performance to back up that of the device. So we are talking about a device drug combination here. An example will be a wound dressing with antimicrobial agents. So your wound dressing, the actual wound dressing itself is your medical device, but because it contains antimicrobial agents, then that is your medicinal part, which is acting secondary, because your device is basically absorbing the moisture, the fluids coming out of the wound, and then secondary, you've got your medicinal product then acting as a antimicrobial agent. So for the purpose of Article 117 and seeking a notified body, these type of products are out of scope. We're not talking about these particular products. What we are talking about here is, however, if the action of that substance is principal and not ancillary to that of the device. So remember, the first paragraph was where the medicinal product was acting ancillary to that of the device. So your device had your primary mode of action. Whereas in the second paragraph, we are talking about combination products where your medicinal product has got the primary mode of action, okay? And an example will be a transdermal patch. The transdermal patch, although you've got the mechanical or physical means, the medical device attaching it to the skin, but its primary mode of action is what the medicinal product is doing. So However, if the action of that substance is principal and not ancillary to that of the device, the integral product shall be governed by the MPD, Medicinal Products Directive, or the regulation 726/2004. And it says, in that case, the relevant GSPRs set out in Annex 1 of this regulation shall apply as far as the safety and performance of the device part are concerned. So we've got a drug device combination product. So if you've got your integral drug device combination product, where your medicinal element has got the principal mode of action and not ancillary to that of the device, then you will need a notified body opinion for the device element, or demonstrate the conformity assessment that allowed you to then affix a CE mark to the device. So this is one class of the combination products where a notified body opinion will be applicable. So it's a bit complicated, but I hope it's clear. So if you do have a combination product where the medicinal element has the principal mode of action or primary mode of action, then you will need a notified body opinion. So that is the type of products that we're talking about under Article 1, Section 8. Now, remember, we've got two sections that are applicable to Article 117. So I'll move on to Section 9 of Article 1, which has also got two paragraphs, explain that, and then we will get or define the products that are applicable for a notified body opinion. So here we've got Article 1, Section 9, okay? And again, it's split into two paragraphs, and only the second paragraph is applicable to seeking a notified body opinion. But I'll go through the first paragraph so you understand what's going on there. So Article 1, Section 9, the first paragraph. Any device which is intended to administer a medicinal product as defined in your MPD, without prejudice to the provisions of that directive, with regard to the medicinal product, devices administering a medicine, and I'll just put here, they could be non-integral, okay? They could be non-integral. So for example, insulin pumps, an insulin pump where the pump itself is the medical device administering the product, or administering the medicinal product, and then you've got your cartridge that will then go into the insulin pump. So that is a medicinal product. But here we talk about a device which is intended to administer a medicinal product. So that was one type of combination products, which again will be out of scope of seeking a notified body opinion. And then it says, however, if the device intended to administer a medicinal product and the medicinal product are placed on the market in such a way that they form a single integral product, which is intended exclusively for use in the given combination and which is not reusable. So there are a few key important bits here, okay? So you've got a device which is intended to administer a medicinal product, and they form a single integral product. They are intended exclusively for use in the given combination, so you cannot supplement it with something else. Bear in mind, if you look at the first paragraph of Section 9, the example that I gave here, so you can have an insulin pump and you can use different cartridges, different types of insulin to go with that particular pump. But in this case, we are talking about products that are supposed to be used in that given combination. You can't substitute one for the other, one for something else, and is not reusable. So a single integral product exclusively given for that particular combination and is not reusable, then in that case, the relevant GSPRs will apply to the device element of that single integral product. So those are single integral devices administering a medicine. And some examples are pre-filled EpiPens, pressurized metered dose inhalers. So these are some of the examples that will fall under this particular definition. So let's recap on Article 1, Section 8 and Section 9. So for Article 1, Section 8, the subparagraph, we have got drug device combinations, and an example will be a transdermal patch. And then we have got Article 1, Section 9, the second paragraph, which are single integral devices administering a medicinal product. So single integral devices administering a medicinal product, and must be given in that particular combination and not reusable. So now that we have got the types of products that fall under the requirement of Article 117, and we know what Article 117 is telling us. It says, if you get any of these products that fall under these two sections, Section 8 and Section 9, and their second paragraphs, then you need to seek a notified body opinion. So in summary, that is the requirement. If you fall within these definitions of Article 1, Section 8, Section 9, the second paragraphs of them, then you need a notified body opinion. That is the simplest way I can explain it. But do go over these definitions to make sure that you understand what is said here. And if you've got any questions, then please put those through and I'll be happy to answer those at the end. Right. So you need to seek a notified body opinion. Now, somebody will ask, who is a notified body and what do they do? What's the importance of a notified body? So notified bodies are designated by competent authorities to conduct conformity assessments under a particular given regulation. In this case, we're talking about the MDR 2017745. Okay, so with that, they'll be designated by your competent authority. So for example, you've got the HPRA in Ireland, and they will designate organizations to be a notified body to carry out a conformity assessment. So your conformity assessment is going through your technical documentation, your technical file, to make sure that you are meeting the requirements of the particular regulation in question. So if it's the IVDR, then they'll assess according to the IVDR. If it's the MDR, then they'll assess according to the MDR. Okay, so that is what a notified body is, and they carry out conformity assessments. When they carry out a conformity assessment, you then have their authority to use their unique identifier on your product. So we're talking about devices that are going to Europe, right? Okay, so you will have your CE marking that goes onto the product. So there's a CE mark that goes onto the product, and underneath the CE mark, you have your 4-digit code that then identifies the notified body. So if something goes wrong on the market and your competent authority gets involved, they can easily look at the device in question, have a look at the identifier, and they will know which notified body actually approved that device to go onto the market. They can approach the notified body and say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Notified Body, we've got this product that's behaving this way. Can you show us some technical documentation on its safety or performance requirements? And the notified body will be obliged to give out such documentation. Okay, so previously it was sufficient for a manufacturer to self-declare conformance to the essential requirements of the Medical Device Directive, but this is changing under the MDR. Okay, so things are changing under the MDR. Previously, manufacturers could self-declare, and you would then approach your competent authority. They would then assess it, and it's fine. But now manufacturers need the involvement of a notified body. So whereas before it was the manufacturer working on their common technical documentation, your CTDs, and then submitting it for a market authorization approval, it was just the manufacturer working with the competent authority. That's fine, 2 parties involved. In this case, there is a 3rd party involved, your notified body. So manufacturers will have to work with your notified body, get the approval, then you include your report into your MA submission. So a notified body opinion. What is the notified body opinion? The notified body opinion is a type of conformity assessment for the medical device element of your combination product. Now, the notified body opinion is a report that stems out of a result of a conformity assessment. Typically, it's 20 pages and could take in the region of 2 to 6 months of review by the notified body to actually get your notified body opinion, to get that report. And it comprises of 2 elements. So you've got your technical documentation review, and then you've got your medicinal documentation review. So they will assess elements of your medicinal product, although it won't be as heavy as your technical side for your medical device. Now, talking about cost, it varies depending on the notified body that you approach and the type of service that you do go for. From experience, it could be in the region of 20 to 65,000 pounds. Doesn't mean it cannot go beyond 65,000 pounds depending on the therapeutic area that you are working on. But from experience, from the ones that I've worked on, was in the region of 20 to 65,000 pounds. But at Selligence, we'll be able to assist you to approach notified bodies and then get these relevant quotations and then get the work done for you. But more details to follow later on. So we know we are talking about a notified body opinion, which is a conformity assessment. And what is this conformity assessment based on? The conformity assessment is based on the manufacturer demonstrating that the device element of your combination product is actually compliant to the Annex 1 of the MDR, which is the GSPRs, the General Safety and Performance Requirements of the regulation. So somebody would say, what are the GSPRs? So I'll go into the GSPRs to give you an overview of what these GSPRs are, the General Safety and Performance Requirements of your medical device element of your medical device. So I hope up until this stage, it is very clear on what we are doing. So we find ourselves in a regulatory environment where things are changing. And from the medical device directive going on to the medical device regulation, now we need to consult a notified body if you are producing or selling certain types of combination products in Europe. And we've gone through the types of products that are applicable or will require a notified body opinion. So that was your Article 1, Section 8 and Section 9. But within these sections, you've got 2 paragraphs. It's the second paragraph of them. Okay, and so we've spoke about the types of products that are applicable. And now you need a notified body opinion. We know who a notified body is. A notified body opinion is a report, but it's based on a conformity assessment of you meeting the requirements of the MDR. And you need to meet the general safety and performance requirements of the MDR. And that's stated in Annex 1 of the MDR. So just to recap on the articles or directives, the sections that are applicable. So you've got your Article 117, which will then show you what you need to do if you fall into certain product categories. Article 1 then defines the products, and then Annex 1 is the actual requirement. So this is just a recap, so you can all follow me and know what the requirements are and what products they are applicable to. Okay, so let's have a look at the GSPRs. Okay. So, an overview of the medical device regulations, Annex 1, which has the general safety and performance requirements, GSPRs. The GSPRs are in 3 chapters and they have various requirements, okay? They have 23 main requirements, but they've got up until 200 considerations. So you could have one requirement that then has another 10 sub-requirements or another 10 sub-considerations. Manufacturers need to go through the entire 23 main requirements, the whole 3 chapters of the GSPRs, and then demonstrate which ones are applicable and which ones are not applicable. And for the ones that are not applicable, you have to justify why you think it's not applicable, and the notified bodies will be looking out for these statements as well. So like I've stated here, not all requirements will be applicable to one particular medical device. So you take any type of combination product and the device element, there will be something somewhere, some of these requirements that will not be applicable, whether it's not sterile, it's not emitting radiation. So there will be certain areas that will not be applicable to your product. So you have to go through that and then make sure that you are stating clearly which of these 23 points are applicable and which ones are not applicable, or the considerations. Now, in summary, just want to give you an overview of what these 3 chapters are talking about. So I've broken them down, chapters 1 to 3, and we'll give you a brief overview of what's going on there. So for chapter 1, you've got your general requirements, and that has got 9 main requirements, and it's got up to 20 considerations. Now, you are to assess the safety and performance elements of how you have designed and manufactured the device, taking into consideration its intended use. So right from the very beginning, you to consider the intended use, how safe is it, and its performance. And basically you have to bear that in mind when you are designing and manufacturing this particular product. You also need to consider risk management according to ISO 14971. Its latest edition at the moment is the 2019 version. So basically make sure you analyze your risk elements, you evaluate them, you score it, you then control, so you mitigate, you reduce the risk, and then you evaluate your residual risk. So you define your risk, you put in measures to reduce it or to get rid of the risk, and then afterwards you have to analyze again, you have to evaluate, do you have any residual risk? That's the review element, and then you have to consider your production activities and your post-production activities and any risk elements associated with it, and then also factor those ones into your risk management. So that's really what the risk management ISO 14971 is trying to get manufacturers to do. Now, your chapter 2, which talks about your chemical, physical, and biological properties of the device element, has got 13 main requirements and up until 103 considerations, up to 103 considerations. And what are we talking about here? So we're talking about your design and manufacturing considerations, the choice of materials, okay? So why you've chosen a particular material, the compatibility of any moving parts, and from material A to material B, are these 2 materials compatible with each other? the mechanical properties of these materials. You must be able to state all of these, why you've chosen it, and its mechanical properties when it comes to toxicity, certain plastics or certain elements getting into contact with the skin. They could have a reaction with the skin. According to REACH guidelines, are you using the right amount of certain elements within your materials? Phthalates, which is found in plastics. Biocompatibility, you have to demonstrate your verification and validation protocols. If the device can be adjusted, calibrated, or maintained in any shape or form, what instructions are going with it? Why have you specified the instructions in a particular way? You have to make sure that the user can self-calibrate if that is the requirement. Do they need to be skilled in a certain area to carry out the calibration? What will they need? Would they need control solutions? How accurate are the control solutions? What if something goes wrong? Are they able to identify when something goes wrong? So this is what's going on in chapter 2 of the GSPRs. And then you've got chapter 3, which is the information supplied with the device. So it could be labels that need to go onto the device, or it could be the information for use, leaflets, or in the pharma world, you call it a pill, the patient information leaflet. Now, so you've got one main requirement, but it's huge. It's got 65 considerations, so things that you need to consider for your labeling of the device or information that's going with the device. Now, so there's the sticky point. As a combination product, where we've seen that the medicinal side will have your primary mode of action. If you've experienced this, the competent authority usually don't allow a lot of your medical device information to be included on the outer packaging for various reasons. So you have to consult with your MPD, so your Medicinal Product Directive, and where there are differentiations or things that are not of the same, are not the same, I would advise you to go with your Medicinal Product Directives requirements when it comes to labeling. But one thing that you will be allowed to do is, if your device needs a label, you have to label it according to the MDR. Put that label on the actual product according to the MDR. It's the outer packaging where, if it's a medicinal product, you have to go by the Medicinal Product Directive guidelines. So it must be presented as a medicine in that particular combination. So where you've got a clash between the medical device and your medicines directive, then I would say go by your medicines directive, consult with your competent authority on where you've got things that are clashing, and they'll be able to assist you. Alternatively, get in touch with Celigence and we'll be able to help you as well. So for your chapter 3, you to list the residual risk associated with the device, and you can do this in a number of ways: via warnings, precautions, contraindications to both the patient who will be using the actual device and users, other users. So when I say other users, you've got HCPs, healthcare professionals, who will be looking after a patient using the device. So not just the patients, but you have to consider people in the environment that could be affected by it as well. Your manufacturer's address, the trade name, any storage instructions, transportation instructions. This is where all these requirements are. So that is chapter 3 of your GSPRs. So GSPRs is very heavy in advocating for safety, performance, information that's going with the product, your mechanical properties, the choice of materials, stuff like that. So it's heavily detailed, and you have to plan well in advance when you're going through these and have the right documentation when you're dealing with the GSPRs and the notified bodies. So this is just to give you an overview of what the GSPRs are talking about. Now, let's talk about the best practices when you are seeking a notified body opinion. So you've been assigned to a project, which is a combination product. You have to identify your combination product, go by the definitions of Article 117, Article 1 of the MDR, Section 8 and Section 9, and the subparagraphs of these two sections. Make sure that you are falling within these particular definitions. If you are within it, then, does the device element on its own need a separate conformity assessment? It might do. If it needs a separate conformity assessment, then you have to get in touch with a notified body, go through a full conformity assessment to get a CE mark on the product. Can you self-certify the device element and fix a CE mark yourself? If you can't do any of these, then you need a notified body opinion. If you need a notified body opinion, then you have to make sure that for the device element, you are meeting the requirements of Annex 1 of the MDR, which is the GSPRs. So does it need a notified body opinion? You have to go through that. Is it a medical device? So make sure you can define that your product is actually a combination product. So you have got a medical device element, and medical devices really work by physical and mechanical means. So bear that in mind as well when you are defining your product, whether it's a combination product or whether it's a medical device or a medicinal product. Very important to define your regulatory pathway. Identify your critical paths. So if seeking a notified body opinion is going to take a lot of time, make sure you work ahead of time in your program, in your regulatory pathway. Plan ahead, set up your team, and then make sure that you are going through that process. Plan your project with key stakeholders. So right from, involve your stakeholders, involve the research and development team, designers, your medical persons, your contract manufacturers, transportation and storage personnel, your marketeers, the quality and regulatory professionals. Make sure you involved the key people right from the very beginning of your project. So, everybody's aware of what they need to do and how they need to contribute to the project. It'll run much smoother. You'll get things done quicker, less bottlenecks, and you'll be able to go to the market as per your timelines without, hopefully, without any horrible delays. Make sure you compile your technical documentations and any summaries of it that are needed. And the MDR makes it clear that your technical documentation must be clear, organized, readily searchable. Okay, so use bookmarks, use your table of contents where it's needed, formats that are acceptable, depending on the notified body and what formats they will accept. It could be a PDF, it could be a Word document. Find out from your notified body how they want it submitted, and make sure you use diagrams, pictures, and tables. Make it easy to be understood. Okay, your technical documentation must be easily understood by your notified body. The more complicated you make it or difficult you make it for them to search for relevant information, the more time they're going to spend on it. And we all know time is money. Eventually it will cost you more money as well. The timelines for you to go into market will be impacted. So this is why I'm saying make sure you plan all of these things well in advance. You incorporate everything into your project plan when you're dealing with these. With a notified body, seeking a notified body opinion. So, notified body, when it comes to notified body and the selection thereof, make sure that for when you're selecting a notified body, and as at now, the last time that I checked it, I think it was last night, there were 20 designated notified bodies available to carry out work to the MDR 2017-745. So 20 notified bodies, but since January, February, I think there is one added to the list every month. You know, I looked at it, it was 18, and then last month I looked at it, it was 19, and this month it's 20. Okay, so it is increasing. Okay, so it's likely to increase. Make sure that you do shop around. Make sure the notified body is approved to carry out conformity assessments in your device group. When it comes to pricing, approach as many notified bodies as you can. I'm not saying approach all 20 because you won't have the time to do so. Select according to the market that they go into, the ones that you've worked with previously. Availability is key, and I'll come to availability in a bit. So, you know, I would say choose between 3 to 5 notified bodies that you want to work with, and you know, get quotations, see what they are going to offer. Do they offer support hours? If they do offer support hours, make sure you use these properly. Delivery times, you know, notified bodies, you know, are very busy at the moment. Some of them will be able to do it within 2 months, 3 months. Some of them will be so busy that everybody's gone to one particular notified body or 2 particular notified bodies. They might be very busy, so there will be a queue, and you have to join the queue. They don't offer an express service, for example, then you just have to join the queue. If it's going to take you 6 to 9 months, it will take 6 to 9 months. Some notified bodies will be able to do it quicker in 3 months, you know, but so have all of these in mind as well when you're approaching a notified body. Know what you want, you know, whether it's timeline or whether it's cost, and then, you know, go for what suits you. But if they do offer support hours, just make sure you use all of the support on hand. Typically, this could vary between 10 to 12 hours from experience of extra support hours. So, you know, make sure you use those. Bear in mind, notified bodies do not consult. They're not there to offer consultation. You are supposed to read the guidelines, the regulations directive, do as it says, and then go for a conformity assessment. And then they will tell you whether you've met the mark or not. They do not consult. They do not offer consultation services. If you need consultation services, then, for example, come to Selligence and we'll be able to assist you with that. So you have to know how to deal with notified bodies, okay? And then once you've gone through the process and you've got your report, this can then be added to your market authorization submission folder. And I believe this will fall in module 3 of your electronic common technical document, as shown on the screen here. So these are some of the considerations that you must make sure you follow as best practice when you're dealing with a notified body and seeking a notified body opinion. So let's talk about your technical documentation, best practices on technical documentation, what you can do to make sure that your technical documentation is up to a very good level. Because bear in mind, it's the MDR. The notified bodies have got a certain expectation of how they want the documentation to be. And if everybody is submitting it in a particular way and you submit it differently, you will stand out like a sore thumb. So make sure that you do follow some of these and use best practices within the industry as well. For your technical documentation, I think there is Annex 2 of the MDR that tells you briefly how you can put your technical documentation together. So starting off, make sure that you've got a cover letter explaining the reason for an assessment. So this demonstrates that you know why you've approached the notified body, although you would have gone through your pro forma invoice stage where you give them information about your device, they give you a quotation, you've signed a contract and all of that. So yeah, they already know, but it's just something, a prerequisite for your technical documentation, okay? And then state clearly what the intended use is. Don't let it be so complicated. What is the intended use? It has to be clear to the reviewer on what the intended use is. Add your device descriptions and any variants of the particular device, any accessories that work with the device. Make sure you state all of these in your technical documentation. Like I said earlier, make sure you add diagrams and pictures. It helps them as well, and make sure your technical documentation is searchable. When it comes to your specification, make sure that is clear on what the product specification is, your device specification, the safety specification, the performance specification, and make sure all of these are clearly stated within your technical documentation. Your design and manufacturing information, how the product has been designed, the stages that it's gone through, your verification, your validation processes that you've gone through, your manufacturing protocols and all that. Make sure that it's well laid out, it's easy for the reviewer to understand. And then the next point is your device verification validation process, which I've spoken about, but make sure you are utilizing the harmonized standards that are applicable. Some devices, they are published harmonized standards by the European Commission. Go to the website, have a look at the harmonized standards for your particular medical device, and make sure you are following that to demonstrate your verification and validation processes, how safe your device is, and to the user and to the patient. Okay, so make sure you follow those properly. Demonstrate good risk assessment implementation and maintenance. Okay, so you will have your risk file, which should contain your risk plan of all the things that you're going to do, how you're going to analyze the risk elements of your device, the sources of information. It could be from your clinical evaluations, from your post-marketing surveillance, from complaints, from feedback, from manufacturing. So one of the elements of your ISO 14971 is to consider your production and post-production elements. So this is very important. Make sure all of these things link into your risk management file, okay? And make sure you can demonstrate your benefit risk ratios. You've got clear SOPs, policies, and supporting documentation, everything that goes with it to demonstrate that you have thoroughly assessed the risk associated with the device. When you do look at the GSPRs, I think for chapter one is just full of risk. It's just full of risk elements, so demonstrate that it's safe for the user, it's safe for the environment, safe for other users. It goes to town when it comes to risk management. So the MDR just doesn't leave any stone unturned. So make sure that you are addressing these elements very, very, very properly. Okay, and then demonstrate your compliance to the GSPR. So good documentation. So make sure you list out your GSPRs, go according to how it is stated within the MDR. Make it clear on what is applicable and what is not applicable, and justifications for each point, each consideration. And also make sure that you submit documentation to prove compliance to every single point or consideration of the GSPRs. Use good referencing systems, so they can read, this is the first requirement of your GSPRs, it is applicable or it is not applicable because of XYZ, and you are demonstrating compliance with a document or SOP number 1234 or a particular harmonized standard, which you've got test reports that meet that particular requirement. Your notified body will be able to assess it on that level and say, yes, you do meet the requirement. And if there are any questions, yes, there will be a particular period where they will throw back questions to you for you to answer. Then they will review your answers, and then they will be able to issue you the report if they don't have any further questions. So just make sure you bear all of these in mind. So we've spoken about it can be complicated and confusing if you're not used to medical devices and the new requirements, although they've been out for a good 3 to 4 years now, since 2017. Yes, priorities have changed, and we're focusing on different things. But if you do find yourself where you're confused, you don't know which way to go, you can't work on this, then by all means reach out to Celligence, and we'll be able to help you accordingly. We, like my colleague Dylan said in the beginning, we've got experienced professionals within the industry working in the organization, and we'll be able to assist you. So reach out and let us know what your requirements are, and we'll be able to guide you appropriately. So references and resources from Celligence. I will now throw this back to my colleague Dylan, who will take you through this.
Okay, great. Thank you, Joseph, for that presentation. Now, before we move into our Q&A with Joseph afterwards, momentarily, I would just like to quickly review the additional resources that Celligence has to offer. On our website, which is simply celligence.com, we have additional case studies to read more in-depthly into our experiences. We also have additional information about our entire array of services and capabilities, as well as our MDR technology, if you would like to learn more about that as well. You can also stay up to date with industry news and Celligence related news with our consistent blog content. We have also produced multiple other webinars that relate to the MDR and UDMED as well that you can view on our Celligence YouTube page. And feel free to contact me with questions for either Joseph or any of your regulatory needs at the email address at the bottom of the screen. Now, thank you again. And now I would like to move into our question and answer portion of this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the wonderful team at Celligence. Again, Joseph Richard Larby for his excellent presentation. He is the regulatory affairs expert of medical devices at Celligence. Joseph, good afternoon to you and welcome. Thank you for being here. We've got a number of great questions that have come through the queue. Thank you again to all of the attendees for submitting those. I know we're over time. If you do need to jump off, no need to worry. We are recording this. So why don't we jump right into the Q&A. Joseph, can you elaborate on the lack of notified bodies and the lack of expertise in this area?
Right. So, okay. So this is in two forms. So lack of notified bodies, and I think I touched on that earlier. So you've got 20 notified bodies at the moment. Now, bear in mind, the notified bodies went through a redesignation process, okay, so from the MDD to the MDR. So they are still going through a certification process with their relevant competent authorities in order to be designated under the MDR. So at the moment, if you go to the new approach, notified and designated organizations, so NANDO, N-A-N-D-O. If you Google that, EC NANDO in Google, it will then give you the list of notified bodies that are available to certify under the MDR. There is the MDCG codes that have been released in a document. I think it's 2019-14. So you will be able to assess the notified body whether they can actually carry out work on your particular device family. So that is that. Go to the EC's website to check on the approved or certified notified bodies, and then you can then approach them, and they'll be able to help you on that. Now, for the second part of the question, where it's expertise of the notified bodies, like I said, they are going through a redesignation process. So they are going to be assessed according to the requirements, and do they have the resources to do it? So some of the notified bodies have set up new teams in order to carry out work under the MDR. So no doubt, I have all confidence that if they are on the NANDO list, and if your device family is listed, then yes, they will be able to carry out the assessment for you without problem.
Lovely. Thank you
Next
so
question,
much
please.
for that. So next question is, can you expand on the need for CER for a combination device? So can you expand on the need for a clinical evaluation report for a combination device?
Right. That's it. So this is also a very, very hot topic when it comes to combination products. The need for a CER, or clinical evaluation reports. Now, the GSPRs themselves, you have to state how you are compliant with them with clinical data. Okay. Now, let's look at it this way. CERs. What is a CER? The CER is for the manufacturer to demonstrate that the device that they've got on market or coming to market with is compliant to the essential requirements under the MDD or the GSPRs under the MDR. And you need to use clinical data as well. So it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. It's by demonstrating compliance to the GSPRs using clinical data is a form of clinical evaluation, but it doesn't need to be in the format that we know it as a clinical evaluation report. So if you ask me, do you need to add a clinical evaluation report when you're demonstrating your GSPRs for an Article 117 notified body opinion? The straight answer will be no. However, you must make sure that your GSPRs are compliant and you are demonstrating with clinical data. Now, clinical data also comes in many ways. It's either from a clinical investigation, from post-market surveillance, or from a scientific literature review, which you get in a clinical evaluation report. So you don't need to draft it as a clinical evaluation report in that sense, but by demonstrating compliance to your GSPRs using clinical data and having that clinical evidence, you are compliant to the requirements, and that's all that you need to do.
Lovely. Thank you so much for that. Moving right along, what are the new regulatory implications when it comes to stents?
Stents. So drug-eluting stents, like I gave an example earlier. So these are device drug combinations. Now, bear in mind, Article 117 and the descriptions of Article 1, Section 8 and Section 9 and their second paragraphs. These are referring to, i.e. integral combination products, where the medicinal product has got the primary mode of action. So these are the products that fall under scope of Article 117 and a notified body opinion. So a drug-eluting stent, for example, is a device drug combination, and that does not fall within the scope of Article 117. It must be integral, and the medicinal component must have the primary mode of action, not the other way around.
Thank you so much for that. Another great question that came through, what do we need to keep in mind in terms of timing and costs?
Timing and cost. Well, okay, so first thing, you need to assess your budget, obviously, the budget that you've got for your product. When it comes to timing, like I said, your regulatory pathway, when you want to go to market, you need to sort of like reverse engineer it, okay? So right from the back, right from the end, from when you want to go to market, you need to plan it backwards to where you are now and what would take the longest period, and then attack those simultaneously as you are attacking the other relevant bits. So timing, like I said, it could take a good 4 to 6 weeks in order to engage with the notified body, for them to accept you as a client and then put your technical documentation through. You need to assess your current documentation for any gaps and you have to then upskill your documents to make sure that they're compliant to the MDR. These will all take time. Okay, so it could take in the region of 12 to 15 weeks to fix your technical documentation, for example. And then you have to then approach your notified body. So make sure that you time these properly as you are. So first identify your documentation, and if you've got any gaps, as you are addressing the gaps, that's where you want to reach out to your notified bodies, because by then you will have a clear indication of when your technical documentation is going to be ready. And when you're dealing with the notified bodies, they want to know when you will be submitting your technical documentation. Yes, you can change the dates that you submit your technical documentation, but no one particular organization wants to work that way. So as you are addressing your gaps, or as you are finalizing your technical documentation, that's where you know when you'll be ready to submit your technical documentation. So in that case, you'll be able to reach out to your notified bodies, and then you know that it will take a good, on average, around 3-4 months to get your notified body opinion. And then bear in mind, this is going into your ECTD. Then go out to your competent authority for your MAA submission. So you have to factor all these things in when it comes to timing. When it comes to cost, like I said, reach out to a handful of notified bodies, depending on your preference, whether you've worked with them, whether the market that the product is going to, having a look at the NANDO list. And, reach out to, I'll say, 3 to 5 of them and get your quotations and the timelines, know how busy they are. Bear in mind, because they are being redesignated and they're working with their old clients, notified bodies might not have the room to take on new clients. So bear this in mind and make sure that the notified body has got the time and space for you as a new client, or if you are an existing client, and the work that it will entail. And just plan it. The whole thing hinges on planning. Just make sure you plan and plan properly, because the availability of the notified bodies is quite rare at the moment. So yeah, work on that.
Lovely. Great practical advice. Thank you. Do you have any recommendations for seeking a consultation on this matter?
Seeking a consultation. Like I said, the notified bodies do not consult. So if there's any consultation that you need to make, then you need to reach out to a consultation agency. You can come to Selligence, for example, and we'll be happy to assist you accordingly.
Thank you. Can you provide clarity on the amount of information and the required level of detail that is really necessary for the consultation? So let me read back. Can you provide clarity on the amount of information as well as the required level of detail that is necessary for the consultation?
Okay, so this is your technical documentation that is meeting the requirements of the GSPRs. So go through the GSPRs and make it very clear what is applicable, what is not applicable. And for the ones that are applicable, make sure that you can demonstrate with clinical data that has been generated by the use of the device, either in development testing, pre-production testing, production testing, post-market surveillance information. Make sure it's clinical data that demonstrates the clinical evidence and ultimately the clinical benefits to the patients and the users. If you're able to demonstrate with clinical data, clinical evidence, and the clinical benefit, and you assess your risk from all areas, then you'll be in a very good shape. So make sure that your technical documentation is robust enough when you're dealing with the notified bodies, because yes, you will submit your technical documentation. There'll be a period where the notified bodies will assess your technical documentation. If they've got any questions, they will feed back to you. You then have to answer the questions, you go back. So depending on the number of rounds that you will go through. But the notified bodies have said, I've spoken to a few of them, and they have said, look, the quality of the technical documentation that they get is not always up to the level that they want. So this is what's taking time for them to go through it and then ask questions, and then the answers then need to be reviewed, and you've got that whole vicious cycle going on. So make sure that you are providing solid evidence of compliance to the GSPRs when you're putting your technical documentation together.
Thank you so much. I think we've got time for one or two more questions.
Okay.
This is a question we see quite often. Can you expand on why the responsibility for determining whether a change is substantial or not is unclear with respect to the company, notified body, EMA, or competent authority?
Okay, all right. So this is around significant change to the product. So let me say this. If you've already got a combination product that falls within the category of Article 117 and Article 1, Section 8 and Section 9, if it's already on the product, then that's fine. You can continue selling that product as it is. It's only the new products and new introductions that will be, or new submissions that will be made to the competent authority on or after the 26th of May, 2021, that need the notified body opinion. So that's one criteria. The second criteria is if you have an existing product on the market and you make a significant change to the device element, then you also need a notified body opinion. Now, what constitutes a significant change to the device? Now, notified bodies have said, whenever you make a change to the device, we want to be kept in the loop. You have to send that information of any changes and the impact to the device or to the product or to the system to the notified body. They would then assess whether that change is a significant change or has other impacts to the device, and they will advise the way forward. However, I would say that significant changes are things that will change the clinical benefit to the patient. If you change in certain properties on the device, if you change, for example, material of a device, and your safety and performance specification doesn't change, and you are delivering the same dose and the clinical benefit doesn't change, then you haven't made a significant change. So that will be okay, but you still need to notify your notified body of any changes as part of maintaining your notified body opinion report. You have to notify your notified body of any changes that you do make to the device, and they will be able to advise you whether it's a significant change or not. So bear this in mind, that for devices that are already on the market, if you make a change that then impacts the clinical benefit or the performance or the safety aspects of the device, and that will constitute a significant change, and you will need a notified body opinion.
Great. And I'm going to squeeze in one last question.
Okay.
Is this requirement relevant for a device with a medicinal component, or is it just for or is it just for a drug that uses a device delivery system?
Okay, all right. Can you read that again, please?
Absolutely, happy to. So is this requirement relevant for a device with a medicinal component, or is it just for a drug that uses a device delivery system?
Okay, all right. So the first part was saying, is it a device that uses a drug or is it for a delivery system? So bear in mind, for Article 1, Section 8, the second paragraph was for integral combination products where the medicinal product has got the primary mode of action. And for your second part, you then had the devices administering a medicinal product where the medicinal product has the primary mode of action. So I think the definition is quite clear according to these two articles. So make sure that your medicinal product has got the primary mode of action. That is the key indicator. It must be integral. It could be a single integral unit or integral, and they must be given in the same combination, and they must not be reusable. If you fall into any of these categories, then that's where you need a notified body opinion.
Lovely. Thank you so much again to our presenter, Joseph Richardson Larby, Regulatory Affairs Expert,
Welcome.
Medical Devices at Celigence. Joseph, truly a pleasure having you with us today and sharing your detailed insight and expertise. Thank you so much to you. Thank you so much again to all of our participants today. Again, thank you for all questions submitted. The Celigence team will be in touch to follow up on a few that we were unable to get to today. So thank you again to all of you for your participation. I will be in touch with a copy of the presentation recording once we get off the line. But again, any further questions or comments for the Celigence team, please don't hesitate to contact me directly at webinars@q1productions.com. And we will be back with another webinar with the Celigence group later this year, so please be on the lookout for that. But thank you again to everyone for your time and consideration today. Everyone be safe and be well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.